FPL Game Week 22, the final team selection decisions. In today's video, we're going to take a look at everything you need to know going into the next deadline. We have a very quick turnaround. The deadline is tomorrow morning, with Game Week 21 ending just last night. And because of the quick turnaround, there are often quite a lot of injury updates, and Cole Palmer is a major doubt. That impacts transfers, that impacts captaincy, that impacts a lot of things going into this week. We'll also have a look at some of the best players to buy. We'll have a look at the projections for this week and what all of this means for my team going into Game Week 22. What is up, everyone? FPL Harry here. Before we dive in, 1,912 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you're new around here as well. And because it is final decisions, I think it is apt and about time we make the big final decisions that we need to on this channel, and that is what to do with the mic. Those of you who have tuned in every week and leaving hilarious and nice comments about the mic and giving feedback, I appreciate it. Those of you who think it's boring and not funny, well, this will be the last time you have to hear about it. Game Week 22 final decisions should be called Game Week or FPL Harry mic final decisions. It is here to stay. I like it. I think it looks nice. And most importantly, I think the audio quality is better. So, final bit of mic content from Sunday's transfer plans video. You won't have to hear any more about it. Do not worry. But let's dive in and talk about some of the final decisions. The first thing I'm being asked quite a lot, actually, is should you play the bench boost this week? We'll go through a benching ranking later on in the video, but quite a lot of you are looking at very strong benches this week. What I would say is there will be double game weeks that you could play your bench in, but they don't look incredible. It's not like previous years where we're going to have 10, 15 teams with a double and there's going to be a whole host of options. It's going to be really easy to play the bench boost. It won't be like previous seasons. So if you're looking at your bench this week and you think it could easily score 15 plus points, because that tends to be the benchmark, then I would look to play it. If you think it's maybe 10 and you'd get 15 if you got really lucky, then I'd probably stay away from it. And of course, I wouldn't play it unless you have 4 players on your bench who look guaranteed to start. Next up is just a key bit of advice. We talk a lot about players to buy. We talk a lot about the best transfers. What should you do going forward? Who should be looking to target for the doubles? But we don't often talk about the benefit of rolling transfers. And I think it's really, really key at the moment and over the next few weeks. I wouldn't be making transfers unless they feel really essential and you think you're going to get significant points upgrade on using those transfers. Going into Game Week 24, of course, we have the double. Then going into Game Week 25, we will know confirmed blanks in Game Week 29. We will have the next round of the FA Cup as well, which will make projections for Game Week 33 double, Game Week 34 blank, and Game Week 36 double just start to look a little bit more clearer. But the big thing, of course, is it will make our chip strategy for Game Week 29 just look that little bit clearer. So generally, if you can roll your transfers, and once we get to Game Week 24, 25, I ideally think everyone should have 2 at a minimum, 3 or 4 transfers, if 5 you can get to as a luxury. Next thing, the big bit of injury news is Cole Palmer at home to Wolves. We did see in the game against Bournemouth in the first half, he went down holding his ankle. He did get up and play the rest of the game, but it sounds like there is a little bit of lasting damage to Cole Palmer. Because it is a quick turnaround, you often get players not being fully available and also not getting a fully confirmed update. Cole Palmer is a doubt going into Chelsea's game on Monday. Now, the benefit, of course, is that Chelsea do play on Monday so that he has the extra turnaround and extra rest. If I had to do a prediction, I would say he probably ends up being available, but he does have a knock and he hasn't trained since that game against Bournemouth. As a result, he was going to be top of my captaincy ranking. When I made the graphic this morning before the press conference, he was first. And if you don't think the injury is anything significant, if you think he's definitely going to start and play 90 minutes, I think Palmer is the best captain this week. However, with those extra doubts added in, he has dropped down to 3rd, leaving Mo Salah as probably the best, most reliable captain option. Of course, he's only blanked 3 times this season. 2 of them have been against Nottingham Forest as well. He goes away to a Brentford team who tend to struggle a little bit defensively. Alexander Isak is in at number 2. He is the early kickoff, and Bournemouth have been quite good. Now, you will see stats being thrown around of, I think Bournemouth have 8, 9 or 10 of their first team players out, but it is worth remembering that the majority of them don't get in their starting 11. Pretty much all of their starting 11, bar a striker and a right back, are fit and available at the moment. So that is a little stat that tends to be thrown around, but it's not as bad as it first looks, and it's the early kickoff. So Salah over him. Palmer just based off the minutes, but the issue is we did this midweek. I didn't captain Isak against Wolves because he was a slight doubt, and I feel like I might fall into the same trap again. My captaincy armband is not on Palmer at the moment. So Palmer in at 3, Haaland in at 4, and Chris Wood in at number 5. The issue with number 5 with Chris Wood is I just don't see him getting more than one return very often. I think he's only done it 2 or 3 times this season. So for me to captain a player, I want the Hall potential. That's why I like Salah. That's why I like Palmer. And I like Alexander Isak to a certain extent as well. I don't see that with Chris Wood. So I'd prefer a Salah, Isak, Palmer, or even a Haaland this week. So to start off by covering a bit more of the injury news, the first one is Ismaila Sarr at Crystal Palace. Unfortunately, he is a little bit of a doubt with hamstring tightness. He has had hamstring issues in the past. It is West Ham away. It is on Saturday. It is a very quick turnaround. Personally, I'd be surprised if he comes in and starts that with hamstring tightness. I imagine they use it as an opportunity to give someone like Kamada or Eddie Nketiah a start. It's not guaranteed. He might be in the squad, but I'd be surprised if Sarr starts. Also at Chelsea, on top of the Cole Palmer news, we had Lavia. Now, no one really owns him. But if either Enzo or Lavia miss out, Enzo's a bad pick. Of course, if Enzo misses out, because he is also a doubt with muscle fatigue, he's a bad pick because he's not going to play. But if Lavia misses out, we've seen Enzo be really reserved and play much deeper when Lavia is not in the team. So although it's Wolves at home this week, I'd say the chance of both Enzo and Lavia playing on Monday night probably feels quite low. So I would be happy to sell Enzo this week. And then the final one is what to do with Levi Colwill. He is also a doubt. There was no real update about exactly what the issue was, but if you own Colwill, he had a slight issue in the second half of that game. There are so many good defenders. I'd probably be looking to sell this week. Now, a few others. The first one is Matheus Cunha, which actually could be a boost to the Chelsea defence because Cunha had the flu. He is yet to train so far this week on Thursday or on Friday. There is, of course, the bigger turnaround, as there is with the Chelsea players, until Monday. I probably expect him to get over it, but we don't really know. There is the aim that he trains over the weekend and will play on Monday. But again, if you own Cunha, there are so many good forwards out there at the moment. Cunha to Chris Wood this week feels like one of the most straightforward transfers you can make. Now we turn our attention to Liverpool. Both Luis Diaz and Diogo Jota are doubts. Jota is a much bigger doubt. He had some discomfort recurrence of the injury that he's had before. I would be shocked if Diogo Jota starts Brentford away. Luis Diaz might be more likely. He did have a sore throat, not as bad as the flu, probably just a cold or something like that has ruled him out of training yesterday, and I don't believe that he's trained that much today either. I actually predict that it'll be Gakpo, Darwin, and Mo Salah. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to sell Luis Diaz because you could bench him this week because then he does walk into Ipswich at home, double Wolves at home in the next 3 game weeks with a double in the middle. So if you like Luis Diaz as a player for the double, I would just bench him. Don't go buying Diogo Jota because his injury record is just too bad, and Cunha is probably a sell. So after all that, having a look at players to buy, in goal, 3 names will remain: Pickford, Alisson, and then Sells. I would still go with the doubling goalkeepers over the single goal game week goalkeepers. Sells is the best of the single game weekers, and it's a great entry point at home to Southampton, but I would buy Pickford over Sells. He, of course, plays in the blank as well with a really nice fixture, Pickford against West Ham. He has the double. Now, one of them is against Liverpool, but that doesn't matter so much for a goalkeeper because you have saves, you have bonus. Of course, you have all the other things, well, saves being the big one for a goalkeeper. So the clean sheet is slightly less beneficial, whereas I'd be less inclined to buy an Everton defender because they do rely mainly on clean sheets, and that's less likely to happen. Moving into defense, I think we saw Trent playing 97 minutes against Forest, just showing how much they do rely on him for his creativity and his attacking threat. So yes, keep an eye on the transfer window. Keep an eye on he definitely doesn't go to Madrid, but I think Trent is probably a buy and one of the best defenders for the next 5 weeks because of the double, because of Ipswich at home, because of Wolves at home. He is the best over the next 5 weeks. Then we'll be looking to sell once game week 26 comes around because he's not massively worth the value outside of that. If I was going to double up, I would just go down to Konate. He only played 65 minutes this week, midweek, but he should be fine to start going into Brentford away this week. At Nottingham Forest, I really like Williams. If I was going to buy one for Southampton at home, it would be him at just 4.3 million. You could go for a Milenkovic, you could go for a Murillo, you could go up to Olaraina, but when you have a 4.3 million option, who is slightly less nailed, slightly less guaranteed to play as many minutes, he's not guaranteed to play every game, but he does look pretty nailed at the moment. I would go with him over the others. Munoz, for the long-term fixtures that Palace do have, Lewis Hall is in there at number 5. Just because of the long-term fixtures, I have got Munoz over Hall. And number 6, if I was going to buy an Everton defender, it would be Tarkowski over any of the others. Moving into midfield, outside of Salah and Palmer, of course, it actually is quite difficult to pick some of the midfielders that we've got at the moment. Gordon remains number 1 and Burmo number 2. From next week, and Burmo will be number 1 and will probably be number 1 for the next 5-10 game weeks. He's going to be such a good buy from their Palace away fixture next week. I've actually got Ahmad above Fernandes. I expect Fernandes to outscore Ahmad between now and game week 29, but the value is a big difference between them, and Ahmad has just scored a hat-trick, of course. Fernandes is in there. I still like him as a buy despite the blank. He did create chances. The issue with the game last night was for Fernandes is he had to play quite deep to try and get things moving to create some chances, particularly when some of their central midfielders went off the pitch. Alanga in at number 5. He's fine. I don't love the pick, but he plays this week. He plays in the blank away at Ipswich. It's not the end of the world. I would prefer Gibbs White, but Alanga is just much cheaper and you can have him sat on your bench. For example, if you have an Enzo Fernandez, you could go to Ahmad. You could also go to Alanga. Number 6 is going to be Jacob Murphy. I wouldn't really be looking to buy him unless you cannot afford Gordon. How Murphy came away with that game midweek without any returns, I think is very, very unlucky. I actually think midfielders to buy at the moment are really difficult. Gordon and Burmo, maybe a Man United midfielder if you want one. And outside of that, it's probably just keeping the cheaper options that you've got. And Burma will be really popular from next week, but even this week, he's quite a difficult buy. So I don't expect many midfield transfers unless it's Gordon or Brian Burmo in. Moving up front, Isak remains the best pick. If you still don't own him, go out and buy yourself an Alexander Isak. Chris Wood is next at home to Southampton. Then we're going with Cody Gakpo, probably my second favourite Liverpool asset actually for the double behind Mo Salah. I probably would put him above Trent, and he looks nailed to start this weekend, of course, with doubts to Luis Diaz and to Jota. It just makes him even more nailed. As I said with Brian and Burmo, Brentford from next week look great, so Visa is in there, and I actually do put him above João Pedro, but I wouldn't be put off João Pedro. With Welbeck back, I do expect them to create more chances. I do expect them to score more goals, and although he won't be playing up front, he'll be playing slightly deeper, and that can actually be a benefit to him. Then just rattling through the benching decisions in goalkeepers, of course, if you've got Sells, no one's really got Sells and Raya, but I'd start Sells at home to Southampton this week. Sanchez, if you've got now home to Wolves with potentially Cunha out, is next. Henderson with his fixture away at West Ham, then Pickford, then Fabianski over Verbruggen and over Flecken if you own them. Then moving into attackers, I've had a few people ask me about Jackson and Jimenez. I have really no idea why you'd consider benching them. There's a small doubt that Jimenez doesn't start the game, and that's maybe why. But away at Leicester is just such a good fixture. And if you've got Jackson, you've got to start him at home to Wolves. If you sell Jackson to afford a Gordon in midfield, then that's something different. But if you keep Jackson, you have to start him. Eze, then you've got Iwobi for 1 week away at Leicester. And Burma is still a good start. Trent, Gakpo, Luis Diaz, Ahmad, Cunha, Robinson, Visa. I'd go Hall over João Pedro if that's a decision for you. Castagna is slightly lower down the list to Robinson now. Enzo Fernandez is in there. He's either going to start, I think, or probably not going to be in the squad. Gabriel, you've got Semenyo, you've got Munoz, and Sarri's just really low down because I don't predict he starts. You've then got Levi Colwill and then Morgan Rogers at the bottom. Projections for game week 22, looking at some of the predicted goals. Liverpool, Manchester City and Chelsea predicted to score the most goals this week. Liverpool at 2.6, Chelsea at 2.65, Manchester City at 2.55. It's also worth noting that this is taken before the Chelsea press conference, so it might update with a slight decrease for Chelsea because of the doubt to Cole Palmer. Newcastle, Fulham, Arsenal, United all predicted to score about 2 goals as well. When you're looking at clean sheet potential this week, there are 3 real teams that stand out. You've got Arsenal and Nottingham Forest, really. Then you've got Manchester City and you've got Chelsea in there as well. But 3 teams this week hitting that 40% or higher benchmark in Arsenal at home to Villa, Nottingham Forest at home to Southampton, and Man City away at Ipswich. If you own a Gabriel, if you own a Raya, I wouldn't be selling them this week, and I probably would be doing my best to start them. So with that all being said, let's have a look at my team. And from this morning's video, I have made a slight change, and I've currently got João Pedro on the bench in place of Ahmad. Ahmad into my starting 11. It's difficult to bench someone after they've scored a hat-trick, and just the form he shows. He should also be back in the number 10 with Dalot back in the team for Manchester United as well. It's not guaranteed, it's not locked in, but at the moment, João Pedro is on the bench. It could be Fernandes, it could be Ahmad, or it could be João Pedro I decide to bench. Defensively, things are really straightforward. I'm definitely rolling my transfer this week. I don't think there'll be anything. Maybe an embargoed press conference if someone was out for a while, then I'd look to make a transfer, but I don't imagine that'll be the case. Captaincy has moved off Cole Palmer onto Mo Salah, As a result, the vice captain has also moved onto Chris Wood at the moment. The vice captain could end up in a lot of places. Now, my only thought with the captaincy is I'm not certain Palmer will be on the bench. I don't really see that as a scenario. I either see him starting or not playing at all. And if that's the case, isn't that exactly what the vice captain is for? Should I just still captain Palmer and leave the vice captain on Mo Salah? So I am having a little think about that. We will confirm it tomorrow on the stream. But at the moment, the captaincy armband has moved to the safer Mo Salah with the vice captain on Chris Wood. It could also be on Isak, but I hate that 12:30 kickoff captain. Just something I don't like. Never back against Gandhi. That is always the rule. The only other thing with Palmer, of course, is we had the flag on Alexander Isak against Wolves midweek. Does that put me off? Should it actually make me think, yeah, just captain Palmer? Because if he plays, that Wolves defense is horrible. There is still captaincy decisions to be made. I guarantee you that we will be discussing it a lot on the deadline stream, but Salah has it at the moment. So with that all in mind, that is all for the final decisions video. Drop any questions you have in the comment section down below. We will answer as many as we can in the first half an hour of the comments. Thank you all for joining. There will, of course, always be the deadline stream tomorrow where you can come and get your deadline questions answered. We'll have a look at any early team news or anything like that as well. And we'll make final decisions on who I'm benching, who I'm captaining, and everything like that as well. Thank you all very much for watching. Before you go, 1,912 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you are new around here, and I'll be back again very soon.